You ever rent a place so cheap you start to think, maybe you're the haunted one? We did. Sophomore year, we landed this 1920s type fixer-upper off campus for less than the price of a 10x10 storage unit. Peeling paint, drafty windows, floors that moaned like they regretted being built. It wasn't much to look at, but it was off campus, a bit solitary and cheap. It was perfect. We called it The Crypt because we were overly dramatic theater geeks with an inkling for horror films and no survival instincts. Every time someone closed a door too hard, it echoed like a coffin slamming shut. But it wasn't the house creaks that creeped us out at first. It was the old woman in the bright blue house adjacent to us. We were on the outskirts of town, about 30 miles from the nearest police station, and the sound of the freeway was like a memory from where we were. She showed up on day 2, just outside, on the sidewalk, staring. We called her Hidden Mother because she wore this dark veil that covered her face. Sometimes the veil would lift, maybe caught by the breeze, or nudged by her trembling hand, and when it did, you'd see pale, fogged eyes. She stood still like a figure from one of those old photos. Never said a word. She'd wander up to the end of our drive and just stand there, watching. Sometimes the wind would blow harshly, but it seemed too afraid to touch her. I started to think she was a witch, or maybe my imagination was starting to get the best of me. One time, I caught her at our window, just gazing inside like we were the exhibit. Naomi wanted to report her. Khalil said she was probably senile. I wasn't sure what she was, but I know I was severely creeped out. I just chalked it up to my theatric imagination, but still, I started locking my door even during the day. It rained a lot during spring break. Naomi was stuck at the airport trying to make it back to her folks. Khalil and I were stuck together. We didn't care. We sat around all day gaming, and occasionally he would break so he could pray, and I would get up to use the actual toilet and not another soda bottle. The crypt groaned like a whale every time you walked across it. Khalil said it was the wood swelling with humidity. I said it was the soles of the floorboards trying to peace out. Still, we got used to it. We set up our desks, ran Ethernet cables like psychos. Every night, when things settled, there was this rhythm. Faint, not a creak, not the wind, just a soft, persistent shift, like breath pushing against the bones of the house. We blamed the vents. Old ductwork, weird acoustics. Khalil even did a sound map of the place. Nothing conclusive. Then one night, there was a knock at the front door. Khalil paused the game and went to check. He opened the door, then stood still for a moment before coming back. "No one's there," he said. I glanced past him toward the window. Across the street, Hidden Mother stood in front of her own house, unmoving, gazing. I shuddered hard in my skin, watching the cold sweats bead down Khalil's forehead. We closed the door and tried our hardest to get back to the game. Then another knock came from the other direction of the house. We froze. Khalil muted the game. We waited. I got up, walked to the window, looked out onto the front yard. Nothing, just the quiet hum of night, tree limbs shifting like they were whispering secrets, and in the distance, the clouds were starting to swell. Rain was coming. It started for real halfway through spring break. I was up late, buzzed on gas station coffee, half reading, half dissociating. Then, knock behind me. I turned. Nothing. Knock knock from under the floor. I thought it was rats. Khalil thought it was sleep deprivation. That night, the knocks moved, from wall to ceiling to floor, like something pacing between the bones of the house, tracing the edges of our rooms. Then came the night when I was left by myself. Khalil had volunteered to work a double. It rained nonstop, and the Weather Channel said the hurricane was going to touch down in the middle of the night. I knew I would be stuck in that house for longer than a night by myself. I walked checking all the doors and all the windows. When I got to the living room window, I noticed the old woman's lights were on in her bedroom upstairs. I didn't think anything about it and went back to the game. After a few bangs and scratches from limbs of old trees, I decided to play something less creepy. I tried to convince myself that I wasn't scared. Eventually, I swapped to some multiplayer FPS, got bodied by a bunch of 10-year-olds trash-talking in SpongeBob voices. After the third round, I muted them and turned on the news to distract myself. A breaking story: some gang leader finally confessed to kidnapping a rival's younger sister, but he wouldn't say where she was. The reporter said the guy mumbled something about her being close enough to hear the world forget her. His words chilled me, and I turn it off. I started walking up the creaky stairs when the knocks started coming from the living room again, but this time, I could swear I heard faint wheezing, but I couldn't be sure with the way the storm was raging outside. I backed away, hard thudding, and decided to go upstairs. Storm or no storm, I was done for the night. I was in bed, trying to ignore the sounds of the storm when I heard it again, wheezing. But this time it wasn't coming from downstairs. It was echoing through the vent above my head. I sat up, listened. Another wheeze, sharp and raspy. I turned to the window. The old woman's light was still on, but now her silhouette was standing in the frame, unmoving, watching. My heart jackhammered in my chest. Lightning flashed. A tree groaned, then snapped, crashing into a power line. Sparks flew. My bedside clock blinked out. So did the light in her window. Darkness swallowed everything. The wheezing above me grew louder. Panicked, I fumbled around, trying to find a flashlight, my phone, anything. But I was woefully underprepared. My fingers finally wrapped around my phone. I flicked it on, just enough light to guide me down the stairs. I made it to the living room, aiming for the drawer where Naomi kept candles. But then I heard it, a voice, soft and broken. It was barely a breath, more felt than heard. I froze, turned toward the sound. It was coming from behind the TV. I moved it aside and leaned in, pressing my ear to the wall. Thunder rolled. Nothing. Then, a heavy bang on the other side of the wall, inches from my face. I stumbled back, adrenaline surging. More knocks, slower now, from my left. I turned, just as lightning lit up the room. In the flash, I saw her, hidden mother. I grabbed my phone, tried calling 911. No signal. Another knock, this time from the front door, and a jitter of light. A flashlight beam bounced in the storm. I screamed, something pathetic like, "What do you want from me?" The silhouette at the window turned slowly, began to move away. Then the porch creaked. A thud, a low groan. I knew I had to get off my ass and check. When I opened the door, she was there, collapsed on the steps, soaked and shivering. Her face, gaunt, sagging, pale as old paper. Even through my terror, I stepped forward, offered my hand. She took it. Her fingers were cold, damp, trembling. I helped her up and into the house. She pulled a small speaker from her coat pocket, one of those old text-to-speech devices. She typed with shaking hands. The speaker crackled to life. Left double quotation mark. "Who?" I asked. We both turned to the wall. She raised a finger, pointed. I didn't ask questions. I grabbed the fireplace poker and started smashing. Chunks of plaster fell. A crawl space opened. Insulation, dust, nails, and her, a girl, barely conscious, emaciated, bound and gagged, eyes wide, alive. I reached in, pulled her out. She weighed nothing. Laid her on the rug, got her water, covered her with a blanket, turned back to the woman. "Do you have a phone?" I asked. She didn't answer. She was sitting on the couch, still, at peace, gone. I grabbed my phone, moved around until I found one bar of signal, dialed 911, and waited until I heard a voice on the other end, and then collapsed to my knees, watching the unblinking astonishment frozen on the dying girl's face as her breath struggled in fading strides. They say the house is sealed now, condemned. They couldn't move the girl until the next day, due to the hurricane. That night, in the company of a dead woman and a dying girl, listening as her breath faded through the night, I never slept the same after that. When I try to close my eyes now, I still hear the knocking. Inside my head, even the breeze carried memories of whispers and wheezing. I think of hidden mother, how she stood there, silent, watching, how I judged her, feared her, dismissed her. If I had listened sooner, maybe the girl's last breath wouldn't haunt me. Needless to say, we broke the lease and moved back on campus. But the story didn't end there. The news caught fire. The haunted house of corpses, they called it. Authorities found more bodies in the walls. Dozens. Some had been there for decades. Now, every time I walk past a creaky house or hear something strange echo through the vents, I wonder, how many houses have hollows, and how many are still listening?